All right. Looks like we are here. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I hope everybody is doing well. Um, I'm doing all right. I just want to say one thing before we get started, and that I don't know if you can tell, but I should, just in case you can, I'm sporting a couple of black eyes. And no, I didn't get into a fight or anything like that. I'm diabetic, and I was getting up to get something to eat because my blood sugar was low, and I lost my balance and I fell on my face. And so that is why I have a couple of black eyes. So it looks much, much better, but, and I did try to use a lot of makeup, but I did just want to say that in case you wondered why I look like I had two black eyes. Anyway, but let's get started. And so tonight we're going to talk about reporting, documenting and reporting workplace bullying, because it's a lot of times people feel uncertain or unsure about what they should be documenting and how they should be reporting. And that's why when you're being bullied, it's really important to know those things about what to document and also then how to report. But before we jump into that, one of the things I do want to say is that you don't have to report workplace bullying. That's 100% up to you. Now, oftentimes, if you want to take a more formal procedure or things like that, I'm sorry, my cat's right there. Pixel, get down. You have to, oftentimes, you have to kind of follow the chain of command or things like that. Just one second. Come on, Brady. Let's get down. Let's get off there. Okay. And so, and so it's important to do those things, right? And so, and of course, the first step to reporting is documenting, and so it's about what kind of details you include and you gather. First off, there isn't an incident of bullying, okay, that's too small to document. And, generally when we talk about an incident of bullying, we're talking about kind of the time frame from when bullying, like maybe you're in a meeting and you get into the meeting and you sit down and bullying starts. Your meeting is an hour and a half, and lots of bullying things have gone on in there. And when that meeting ends, that's kind of the incident of bullying is over, right? So you want to document from the start of that meeting till the end of the meeting, right? That would be kind of your time frame for documenting that incident. But within an incident or a time frame, there's lots of different bullying behaviors that might occur, okay? And so when we're talking about documenting, especially if you are thinking about reporting, it's really important that you get all of those bullying behaviors down to the best of your ability, okay? And so, for example, there might be eye rolling, and somebody might swear, somebody might interrupt you, somebody might, shoulder shrug, or go, ha, make verbal noises and things like that. You want to get as many of those things down as possible, okay? And the reality also is that you might not be able to get all of those down, okay? But what you can do is get as many down as possible, okay? And one of the things you could do is create yourself, if you're going into a meeting, you might create a cheat sheet of, for example, you might, if you know that people interrupt you, you might write on a piece of paper I for interrupt. For nonverbals like shoulder shrugs, you might go NV, right? And then you just tally those things as they're happening to the best of your ability, okay? And then when you want to talk about all of those bullying behaviors when you document that incident of bullying later. And you want to be as specific as possible. You want to include things like who said what, and what was people's responses. So if a bully calls you a name, you want to document that. You want to put verbatim what it is that they said, okay, in quotes in your documentation. And then if people jumped on the bandwagon and started, other people started calling you names, you want to include that. Or if somebody tried to, intervene on your behalf, you want to include that, okay? And you want to be as objective and factual as possible, okay? What not to include is how you feel about that situation, okay? Because that's not objective and factual, okay? Your feelings are valid, but when you're documenting to make a report, you want to have only the facts from an objective perspective, okay? And so if you want to write a journal or do those things and talk about, the impact and the trauma this is causing you, that should be separate from your documentation that you're planning on using to make a report to HR, okay? If that makes sense. So you don't want to, so then you want to get as much documentation as possible. Okay, so for example, let's say you've been bullied for about a year, okay, and you just started documenting, but you still want to go in and make a report. What I would recommend that you do is you start, again, you're going to have to go back. You're not probably going to be able to get things verbatim, and you're going to have to rely on your memory. Do the best, to the best of your ability. You want to start that timeline of when you first recognized that you were being bullied, when the hair on the back of your neck started to stand up and you thought, something isn't right here, okay? So you might have to go back in your memory and do the best that you possibly can to get the timeline from when it started and the incidents, from when it started to this time when you started to document. Okay, so if you feel like you're in a bully situation, and you're not documenting, you need to start, okay? Because it's really, really important to do it, especially if you're going to make a report. And it's also important if you're dealing with it, because you can use your documentation as a way to protect yourself and strategize and plan your responses to minimize the trauma that you're experiencing from workplace bullying, okay? So you also want so if you're going to report, again, you want your documentation to be organized in a timeline fashion, from beginning to wherever it is that you are. Okay, you don't want it to be disorganized, because if something is disorganized and you're reporting to human resources or your supervisor and they're having to shuffle and figure everything out, that's not, you want them to be able to look at what's happening to you and see the full picture, okay? And you don't want to just include big things. You want to include little things too, because again, if you think of your experiences with workplace bullying, they're all like puzzle pieces. All of those incidents of bullying are like a puzzle, and you're putting those together in your timeline for HR or your supervisor, so that you're showing them how all these pieces fit together. And sometimes those smaller, what we might consider to be more minor incidents of bullying really help solidify that puzzle piece, okay? And sometimes the minor things, or the seemingly minor things, are really the things that cause a lot of damage as well. They're not insignificant, okay? And so you want to make sure that you include those. again, and have it organized, okay? And you don't want to, you want it to be as clear and factual and objective as possible, because you don't want things in your report that HR can twist or the bully can twist, okay? Because when you're reporting workplace bullying, the reality is your workplace is already skewed against you, okay? Because of the lies and the gaslighting and the false narrative that the bully has painted, people may already think that you're the problem in the organization. And so your report is an opportunity for you to show them that that's actually not true, that it's actually this person or persons in your work environment who's causing the problems, okay? And so again, one of the things you have to remember when you're reporting is that it's very, very likely that human resources has already been in contact with your bully, okay? Because that's one of the things that they do oftentimes is go in to make false reports about you. They go in to try to buddy up with HR so that when you do make a report, they've already convinced HR that you're the problem and they're actually not the problem, okay? And so you have to, again, how you report is really, really important, and what you give them is also very important, okay? So the other thing I would really recommend, you need to start collecting all the incidents, right? So if you're not doing that, you need to start doing that. Get as much detail in those incidents as possible, okay? Develop a system that works for you, okay? And then organize it in a timeline fashion from start to where you are. And then the other thing that's really important that helps your credibility and builds a stronger report for you is when you have corroborating evidence to show that what you're saying in your report is true, okay? And what I mean by that is, so if there are emails to support what it is that you're saying, if, for example, if your supervisor is your bully and they told you that you needed to do something one way, then you did it that way, and then they penalize you for doing it that way, you want to have a paper trail that supports that they said this, and then this happened, and then this happened, okay? And so there are a lot of ways you can create a paper trail to that helps your evidence and artifact collecting, okay? And one easy way to do that is if your supervisor says something to you in the hallway and they say, oh, Jan, I want you to be at this meeting at 7:30, and it's going to be here, and so-and-so's going to be there, and I want you to do ABC, okay? What you can do then is immediately go back to your office and send them a follow-up and say, hey, it was nice to bump into you in the hallway. Here's what you said. Here's what, where you said the meeting was going to be. Here's where the location was. Here's what you wanted me to do. I'm just confirming that, and yes, I'm absolutely going to be there, right? And then you can take that email and document it and put it in your file so that if they change the narrative or the tune on what it is they want you to do, then you have the paper trail that says, I saw you in the hallway, here's what we talked about, right? So that follow-up email is a really good way for you to confirm what it is that they said. And I would just get into the habit of doing that. Now, will they catch on? Yeah, they might. But it isn't about whether they catch on. It's about protecting yourself, okay? So even if they catch on that you're following up through emails, that it doesn't make any difference. Keep doing that, okay? That's still a good habit just to get into to make sure that you're understanding and doing what your supervisor or your person is expecting you to do. Okay. And so it is important to have that evidence. So again, meeting agendas. If you have witnesses who will write a statement up or things like that, anything that you can do that strengthens what you said, what your report is saying is happening, is beneficial to you. Okay, so that means also there's a whole lot of ways you can do it. Screenshots, right? If you're submitting your paperwork and that bully is saying that you're not, do a screenshot of when it was submitted, right? And all of those kinds of things. And so all of those things like screenshots and, those are a means of protecting yourself against gaslighting and false narratives that the bully is putting forth. Okay, so don't look at it as, what I'm saying is sometimes I know those things can be overwhelming and it can be difficult to do, but once you get in the habit of doing all those things, like taking a quick screenshot, it'll become part of your everyday work life rather than being something that is, causing you more difficulty and more work, if that matters, if that makes sense. Sorry. And the other thing I want to say is that when you're documenting workplace bullying, yes, you're right. You shouldn't have to document workplace bullying, but when you're being bullied, you absolutely have to document it. Okay? And you want to create a system that works for you. So some workplaces are more conducive to documenting, some are not. And so you just have to get into a system that works for you. Setting up a brief, 10 minutes when you get home to document. Okay, one of the things that I used to do is, because a lot of times what a bully will do is they'll do the same things over and over and over. Okay, well then I just created a spreadsheet where I could copy and paste from my one document into my current documentation, so I wasn't having to rewrite or try to think of a different way to say these things. I just kind of had a word bank of things that I could pull in. Okay, and let's talk about when, like for example, if you're in a meeting and there's a lot of nonverbal behaviors going on. Okay, what I would recommend in your report, especially when you're going to human resources, instead of saying things like generalizations, like, Jan bullied me and she was eye rolling in our meetings, be as specific as possible. We were in a meeting on February 19th at 6 p.m. Jan, I was presenting my report to the team about ABC. Jan interrupted me 5 times within the first 15 minutes. And Bob, I heard Bob groan or whatever, whatever term you use, groan 6 times while I was presenting my report. Okay, so that you can be as specific as possible when you're making those reports, because it makes a difference if I'm saying, well, they interrupted me. But if I say they interrupted me 5 times within the first 15 minutes of my presentation, presenting my report, that says something different, right? And so again, in your reports, you can say approximately 6 times or et cetera, right? But if somebody is swearing at you, you can count those times up as how many times they did it. And when you have a numerical value to go hand in hand with your the report and the behavior that you're making, it makes a difference. Okay, it says something more when you can say you were interrupted 5 times versus I was interrupted. And the other thing I think that's really important, and I've said this before and I am kind of a broken record, is one of the things that when you're making a report, it's really important to connect the behavior of what the bully is doing beyond the personal impact it has on you. Okay, I think it's okay for you to say things like, this is really causing a delay in my ability to do my reports. Okay, but I caution, I caution you to say those kinds of things when you're making a report, because remember, when you're in a bully situation, you're often already the person who's seen as the problem. You're often already seen as the person who's not doing their job. And so when you then say things like, Bob's behavior in these meetings is causing me stress, which makes my which I'm then struggling to get my reports done on time, what your boss or your human resources are going to be hearing is, I'm not getting my reports done on time. Okay? And that's then a problem for you. Okay? And so if you don't say those things like, this is causing my reports to be late, but instead you say, this is causing the team's productivity and our ability to get report XYZ done in a timely fashion. That's hurting our bottom line, and we need to get this report out for the betterment of the organization. When you make the connection to the organization, okay, then that doesn't give HR the ability to then say, oh, you're the problem. Okay? And so when you're making the report, it should be factual. Again, it should be objective. Okay? And so don't put in how you feel about the person. You want to make it strictly about the bullying behaviors. I really recommend that when you're making a report that you don't even use the term bullying, okay? Because that term in and of itself can incite people's emotions and make them upset. And again, you really want to focus on what it is that they're doing, right? And how it's disrupting the organization and the agency as a whole, okay? And you don't want to do anything, right? So if you use the term bullying and that gets your supervisor upset, then you've already lost the battle because they're upset about the term bullying. And when you're making a report, you want to make it in a way so that they're hearing exactly what's going on and they're listening to what it is that you're saying. So you don't want to you should be able to use the term bullying, okay? But it can be inflammatory, and you don't want to do anything like that to get them, human resources or your supervisor, you don't want to get them, inflame them, so to speak, so that they already are looking at you and your report as problematic, okay? And so one of the things that I've done, right, I mean, some of you might already have my documentation toolkit, and that's a great first start, but I don't know if you've been to stopbullyculture.com, but I have a lot of resources on there, articles and those sorts of things, but and those resources on my website and, the things that I've made available for you are because it's important that you advocate for yourself, okay? Because one of the things I know is that when you're being bullied, nobody's on your side, and a lot of times you're out there as your own person, and learning how to best advocate for yourself is both empowering and important to protect yourself, okay? And so one of the things that I've done is I've created a video. It's a really short video on how to document, and then an interactive workbook that has suggestions and tips and tools that you can use to take your documentation and organize it in a way that helps you report to work to your supervisor or human resource in a way that will increase your credibility and help you and protect yourself. And you can get that on my website, and I'll put a link down below too. And I just think it's a good system that I have that helps you understand the importance and what what should I include, what shouldn't I include, and it even gives you just other suggestions on how to when you want to make that report, some good kind of tips on how to approach human resources or your supervisor. And I really recommend that if you're being bullied or harassed or anything like that, that you get the how to document and report workplace bullying system, because I just think it's an excellent resource for you. I know when I was being bullied that lots of people told me to report. No one told me how I should report or what I should include in that report. And as a result of, because I didn't know what to do and how to report, I made a lot of mistakes when it came to reporting that actually increased the bullying, and I ended up getting hurt. And so I want to make sure that when you have resources that, and I say, if you want to report, you should, do X, A, B, C. I want you to know that when I'm telling you how to report, or if you decide to report, that there is a way that is actually that works with you to help you make that report so your report is stronger. So anyway, well, again, if there's anything I can do, please let me know. And I hope everybody is doing well. In Missouri here, we are cold and snowy. And so I hope things are well where you are. And if there's anything I can do, you can always drop me a message. Or you can email me at jan@stopbullyculture.com. So thank you so much.